Okay, LA. We're just going to expand on the use of the bass line, our chord inversions, and just being able to do simple coloring up of a solo. Just a simple ideas, nothing crazy, but for when the partner you have across from you says, okay, go, and they want you to do a little solo, you won't be caught off guard, and because it can feel like you're being thrown into the fire. I know that. It's not going to be anything weird. You're not going to have none of that crazy bonkers stuff. It's going to be straight up stuff that sounds cool, and some vintage blues rock sounding stuff that people will hear it and go, oh, cool, she killed that. And where to you, you already know theory and stuff, so it's going to make complete sense, and it's going to take very little thinking after just a little bit of practice. So if we expand on that idea of the Jerry Lee Lewis stuff, whether you use that bass line or this one, you could always use that old blues rock feel. Use that for Georgia Satellites. Keep your hands to yourself. That sort of thing. Let's stick with C for now, just so you get used to this, and then I'll move to A in a second. But if we have this line and someone's doing Great Balls of Fire, and they say, okay, solo, think about those inversions you have. Chord tones are always number one for soloing, but we need some neighboring tones to brighten it up, especially the bluesy ones like the flat 3 or flat 5 or both. My advice, if you can take the C and the G of your C chord and you can flatten that fifth and bring it back, you can do the third too. I like the thinner sound of just the C and the G. You can throw the octave in there of the C. Octave there. Go up to the 4 chord. So it's just the beginning of something. So it's literally just flatten the fifth and bringing it back. You don't want to hang out in there because that blue note causes just too much dissonance. So you're bringing it back. For the 4 chord, I flatten the third. And then back. For the 5, you can leave out the fifth. You don't really need it. It doesn't really do much for the chord. For the 4 again, I did an F chord, but I threw in the E flat. Just to give it that bluesy sound. And then back to this. Because this and this come out of the blues scale. So essentially you could use those notes. One of the tricks here is if you can apply your theory, your knowledge of theory, well, think of your relative major and minors. On C, technically, you could use the C blues scale, or A, it's relative. Just like a major scale has its relative minor, same thing with the blues, it still works. And you can look at that A blues scale as the pentatonic scale with a flat fifth thrown in. A, C, D, here's our flat 5, E flat, to E to G. Technically, the C blues scale is like the E flat, the E flat pentatonic scale. So it's nothing too crazy if you look at it in the sense of theory. So with that, you technically, as you get comfortable with scales, while the left hand is moving or while somebody is carrying the left hand, you can utilize those in your solos. You can expand it to doing this, but real slow. You could come down. What I'm doing here is, when I went to F, I used the D blues scale. But what I did was I started on the F of the D blues scale. Here's the D blues scale. Again, D is the relative of F. So I can use these notes. So listen to what this sounds like. And I don't mind using the thumb here. This is an American style. I don't think Bach and Mozart are going to be mad at me for this. So the reality is getting used to that traditional fingering, but you're putting it into the use of these blues scales too. We could use the F blues scale, which is the relative of A flat, because we're on F, so we can use F. I like going to the relative of the chord I'm on. So I'm going to that relative minor, that D blues scale. That just sounds really cool, whether it's this. There's something cool like that. And if you notice, that relative minor blues scale, it contains your 3 chord tones anyway. so it kind of fits, and it has your flatted third of your chord, which essentially is the flatted fifth of the scale. And I know I'm throwing out about 1200% too much information, but I'm just throwing it out there at you because you already know theory. And as you get comfortable with the inversions and doing the scales, all that stuff, all this stuff is going to make a whole lot of sense. So we have our inversions to try. We have our left hand bass line. As you're practicing these chords and you're going to the inversions, think about the chord tones and the scale tones that are living right there. So here's my 5, here's my 4. Now maybe I'm going to solo on this. Solo on C. All right, well I could use my A. Yeah, that's a lot to take in maybe, but here's what I did. Here's my, save my left hand's going real slowly. To F. Now I could use the F blues scale, or I could use that D minor blues scale that I already mentioned. I want to throw in some extra chord tones with it. Watch this. So what I'm doing is I'm pedaling this note up here. Made an octave out of the C. It sounds kind of cool. It's very hard to get a comfortable fingering on that if I want to keep that C pedaling down low. But let's take it to that. I'm just going to keep going with this video for you, just to fill it up with nonsense here. Keep Your Hands to Yourself came up the other night. So we have, it's in A. I talked about flatting notes before. What if you flat the 5 and flat the 7th, and then you just rolled them a little bit? Sounds kind of cool. Or you could do this. Guess what? It's the same shit all over again. It's the A chord, and I flatted the 5th and brought it back. So, very bluesy honky tonk sound. And use that technique I just did about 40 seconds ago. Now, I'm on the A. I could use the F sharp blues scale, or I could use the A blues scale. It sounds kind of cool just keeping it with the A blues scale. When I go to the D, that's a little bit more advanced. I'm using an open voicing here of my 3rd, 5th, and an octave of my 3rd. I just love that honky tonk sort of stuff. That's why I use it a lot. But it's not needed. Again, if Tim Cutting's across from you and he says, "All right, give me a solo," I'll just start with flatting the 5th and bring it back. Want to throw in the 7th? Hit the G. To the D chord. It's a D7 chord. You don't have to solo. You could just stab that. To A, maybe a little scale. Fancy enough. To E. To A. I'm just trying to think real simple. I'm just using chord tones. Chord tones gets a little boring. So I think, what if I flat the 3rd? Okay. All just created by flatting that 3rd. Go to the D and do the same thing. Stuff. But my point is, you can practice the bass lines, you can practice the chords, and then just practice manipulating the chords, just flatting the 5th and bringing it back. That's the starting point. And as long as you're rhythmic, and again, if you can do that and count and or say the alphabet at the same time, I know this video in particular sort of drags on, but I'm just trying to stress the fact that don't think in a complex manner. Just think, all right, I have a chord, maybe I'm in the key of G. Same thing applies. Here's my G inversion, or here's my G octave. Well, here's the 5th of my G chord, flat. Want to throw in the 7th? Go up to my 4 chord, C. That's a cool sound. Flatting the 3 and the 5, and then climbing up. eventually we'll do this. But that's that. So just take little bits and pieces and make it work. Cheers.